There he is. All righty. Let's get Facebook in here. Queso. Silly kitty. I'm going to pick him up, but he's going to scratch me. All right. Well, welcome in. Welcome in. It is, Friday morning. A little bit late. I had to get the coffee going. Bed's not made as normal because we have the golden sandbag there, as we call him, sitting there behind me. I'm Nick Kendall, joined by Eric Trickle. This is Broncos for Breakfast. Eric, how you doing? Man, I'm feeling a little empty, secondhand empty. It's the Squidward looking out and seeing Patrick and SpongeBob, hands in the air, having a good time because I have been so busy with work, like so incredibly busy with work that I didn't have a chance to watch much of anything yesterday. Like I saw some of the talk on Twitter and like the measurements coming in, but I missed the defensive line. So I'm feeling sad, but I'm glad I have you here to kind of walk me through what you've seen and what you've heard.
Yeah, I mean, it was a long day yesterday, and they actually had to cut the program short into linebacker testing, which was really a bummer. Got to see a few drills, but not all the drills that you want to see. I gotta say, man, this year with the athletic testing, a lot of great athletes in all these classes, and the on-field drills, like there were very few who really let you down. So I'm excited to get into it and talk about it. And I'm really excited to get into the defensive backs, but more so the tight ends today. The one position group that, we've talked about a lot and finally going to be able to get a lot of answers when it comes to this tight end group when they take the field today.
Yeah, absolutely. It's going to be fun to see the tight end group kind of maybe separate itself today. And we're seeing some of the positions that are a little bit more valuable there. Oops, am I there? Hello?
Yeah, you're here.
Okay, all right. Everything froze for a second as I tried to open up a tab of the testing numbers. But yeah, seeing the tight ends today, it seems to be there's a lot of chatter, obviously about Kenyon Sadiq, but people are really excited to see Max Clare as well as and Oscar Delp. Those are two names that have been maybe a little bit brought up. And maybe that's the bias of who we're following in the Broncos circle, but those are two names that we've obviously mentioned in here as well, but maybe expecting to be a little higher in than what consensus board it was coming into the combine, based on how much chatter there is around them.
Yeah, I mean, and each of them, they all have questions that can be answered today. Kenyon Sadiq, he's expected to go off, and that's everybody's coming in with that's the talk of it. But Max Clare, he's expected to test out really well with the athletic testing, and then with Oscar Delp, there's some questions about the arm length that we're going to get an answer to here in the next couple hours, and then getting the drill work. Obviously, you want to see good athletic testing from him, but from what I've gathered, it's the drill work that they really want to see out of Delp, because at his time at Georgia, there was always this hype around him that we never really got to see fully materialize on the field. And that raises questions. Like, obviously, they had some other great tight ends that they're ahead of him, but there had to be some reason as to why he couldn't consistently, see the field enough or be utilized enough, even outside of that. And so they're going to be able to check out the techniques and everything. And the biggest one is the technique as a blocker and seeing where that's at. You see it well on tape, but now it's get to see the techniques of it in a controlled setting, and it's necessary because there's some questions about his overall technique as a blocker, and if he was just using the size and the strength that he does have to just kind of win consistently over technique.
Yeah, no, I mean, I'm with you on that. I think I have two words for you when you talk about some of that stuff, just about his usage more so in the pass game. It's Gunnar Stockton. Man,
Yeah.
not a very good quarterback out there. But the blocking, you're right. It's beyond that. You try to evaluate and isolate the variable as much as you can when you're going for those guys. But yeah, really a fun day yesterday. I would say the defensive line didn't turn out to be as freakish as I had hoped, but the linebackers lived up to hype overall. It's a really good linebacker class, and the Broncos could go linebacker as early as pick 30. I mean, it's definitely on the table. I know everybody wants in the draft linebacker and tight end. We'll find out about the depth of those two groups there, but linebacker really stood out yesterday. A lot of talent. Before we get into some of these positions, Eric, I do want to say hello to everybody in the chat who's come in. Click the thumbs up. We're obviously here to talk every Monday and Friday morning Broncos ball, and we got a lot of familiar faces in here because 6:30 a.m. is a interesting time for some folks, but it's out there. I always appreciate the comments after the fact as well. We got Dave Glassman in the house. Really want to get a center this offseason, regardless of Wattenberg. Linderbaum is my first choice, but what about the Biadish? I think after you paid Wattenberg, given he is not that good at guard, your plan is Wattenberg. So, I think that's something you got to kind of just look in the mirror and come to terms with. And also, Wattenberg has been a serviceable, but he's better than serviceable. He's a good athlete, and he's pretty good in pass protection. He doesn't block like a guard. And by that, I mean like the one-on-ones, driving guys is never going to be part of his game. But, how many centers are there actually in the league that can do that right now? Obviously you have Creed Humphrey who can block like ISO one-on-one like a guard, but almost all of them have some limitations. And Wattenberg is a top 10 center. I think I'm pretty confident saying that in his ability in pass protection, and also underrated is in the run game, climbing up and sealing that back half of the field, splitting the field in half in the run game a lot. So he's a good center. I don't think it's not a terrible contract for him. Now, does he have some weaknesses in his game? Yeah, he's not Linderbaum. He's a better pass protector than Linderbaum. He's not a weaponized run blocker in the screen game also like Linderbaum. But center is one of those positions I would say don't let great be the enemy of good. There are some positions where like you have to hunt dragons. Like, I'll just say it outright. Like Jonathan Cooper, his play last season, fine. I don't want good at edge. I want great. But center, if you're doing your job and you're not paying, crazy money, I can live with it and build around you.
Yeah, and the biggest thing is his contract. He just signed that extension, and what's great to see is how much of a step forward he took after that extension. I agree with you. I think he was maybe not necessarily top 10 prior to it, but he was probably top 12, top 13, somewhere around there. And then after that extension, man, he looked like a top 8 center with how well he was playing before he got hurt. Like, he just took this huge step forward all of a sudden. And maybe, it was the weight of the contract taken off his shoulders, being able to play a little bit more free or something. I don't know. But with that contract, he's locked in Denver through 2027. He had on the 5th day of the new league year this year, which is March 14th, I think is what it is. He has his $12 million base salary for 2027 guaranteed. That's going to lock him in Denver for the next 2 years. And that's fine. And we'll see what happens. Hopefully he can continue to build off of what happened. And then after 2027, you can look at it. Now, if you get a guy who happens to fall into your lap, that's obviously clearly a better center than him, then you can look to try to offload the player and the contract through a trade. But it's not financially reasonable to be able to cut him. So you're just kind of stuck with him.
Yeah. And again, like, I'm very much adamant linebacker, safety, tight end. Like, you always would rather have great players, but I wouldn't forsake guys in-house that make sense with your scheme and your locker room and everything that you already have here. It's a little bit of, one in the hand better than two in the bush with positions like that. There are positions where adequate, serviceable is not a compliment, but at center, fine. So that's where I'm at with Wattenberg. And he's in his prime, and he has some value for this team as well. And I hope he can be a little bit more weaponized in the screen game and the outside zone game, because he is a decent athlete. He's not always the best at locking onto a moving target, but like he can move to that second level. So we got Big E coming in. Heard Broncos may be combining the air raid hurry up offense West Coast Sean Payton runs. Davis Webb's background is air raid. Obviously, he was also out there in Cal with the just sling it, throw it around stuff that he had there. But, he's very much – it's still going to be Sean Payton's offense. Maybe there'll be different concepts or like tendency breakers out there. But this is Sean Payton's offense, and the NFL wants Sean Payton's offense right now. They're picking off those guys left and right and hiring them up. So we'll see what it looks like different. We won't know until we know, but I would imagine some massive deviation from what Sean Payton wanted to do.
Yeah, George Payton actually did a interview with James Palmer, I believe it was, Tuesday night after, Sean Payton made that announcement, and he kind of touched on this a little bit. In not so many words, he basically said that Davis Webb has been working under Sean Payton for 3 years. He's been working in this offense. This is the offense that he runs as well. That they're not, and basically that they're not going to make any big changes to it. And it's kind of touched on what you said. Some personnel groupings and some prototypes that they look for that might change a little bit, but it is Sean Payton's offense. And one thing that I mean, I know you and Carl did the show Tuesday night after it, and Chad and Zach, they've been on. I'm not sure. I don't get a chance to listen to the other shows all the time, so I don't know if anybody mentioned this. There is one caveat Sean Payton's added into that. He will still call plays occasionally. He will still jump in there, and it really made it, the way he's talked about it, made it seem like that it's going to be certain situations. And when you're Sean Payton and you're still going to be jumping in with play calling every now and then, it's not going to be a two-in offense that you're unfamiliar with, and they're not going to mix two offenses together. It is still going to be Sean Payton's offense, and just very, very little changes made.
Yeah. It'll be interesting to see what it looks like in hindsight, obviously, and we're gonna the royal we is gonna dissect the hell out of it. But I'm excited to see it. I'm nervous too, but like also you still have Sean Payton in house, right? And that's like one of his powers has been the design, and he's obviously going to have some of those jailbreak plays that he wants to call in every now and then. It's just not going to be as much of the sequencing of plays. That would be my assumption. Yeah. And also, you're one step closer to Bo Nix as well. Obviously, with that relationship, that's few lines down from Sean Payton to Bo Nix. Obviously, they talk, but not as much as Davis Webb and Bo Nix have. So we'll see what it looks like. Obviously, the big thing will be, I'm going to move the camera here. Well, the big thing, and Sean Payton's touched on it too, and I don't know how much Davis Webb is going to bring it, but the run game consistency. Now, that could have been a personnel issue as much as anything, but we'll see. The catching the ball more consistently. I mean, they've fixed the wide receivers coach. A lot of the stuff that we talk about with wide receivers, probably more the wide receivers coach, like the rotations of them as well. So we'll see. It's going to be interesting, but it should be exciting too. I mean, on paper, this should be the best Broncos offense we've seen in a bit, and that's even before they add guys. But just with Bo Nix, year 3, all the wide receivers a year older, continuity on the offensive line, and they're going to add pieces. So what did they finish last year? 12th in DVOA? I think this year, if they finish lower than 10th, it'll be disappointing.
Yeah, I'm with you. And one of the things too, you mentioned the one step closer to Bo Nix. One thing on that is that we saw Bo Nix get frustrated with how long play calls were getting in, and that was the big reason Sean Payton touched on as to why he was giving up the issues getting the plays in. And it's kind of understandable if you listen to Sean Payton do a presser and him stumble over his words, even when it's very clear he has a clear line of thought, he still stumbles over his words. There's been, I can't remember who it was, but I think it was somebody from KOA kind of reported that was part of the issue, is that Sean Payton would stumble through the play calls, and that would help, pass on along will help clear it up. And so it's interesting. It's good to see, but we should have known it was coming. Like when Sean Payton brought it up towards the end of the season about play callers' time coming to an end, that kind of should have been a clue, and it's something that I touched on quite a bit. It's still a little shocking, as we've said, but I'm interested. I'm very intrigued by what Davis Webb can do. They still need to add those pieces. They're going to add those pieces so they can get him to be successful. Obviously, that's the goal. Davis Webb is successful. The whole team is going to be successful. And I'll just be curious to see the process of the play callings getting sped up and how much that translates to on the field, because we saw pretty consistently when Bo Nix was able to get the play call in and they were able to break the huddle with some time for him to make adjustments at the line, the offense typically did a little bit better. So we'll see how much of an impact that also has in this offense this year.
Will be interesting to see how it plays out, and already missing football and excited for next year. But we're talking combine right now. But first, we got Michael Ronquillo coming in. Says, good morning, Eric and Nick on Broncos for breakfast. Good to see you. Keith is in here too. Says, Sonny Styles, I like a lot. What's your thoughts on him? I mean, him and Arvell Reese could be coming off the board 2-3. And is it crazy to say that outside of positional value, maybe Ohio State had the 3 best players in this entire draft this year? I mean, you have Love too. I think we talked about, I think it was Dane Brugler, like the 5 best players come from the state of Ohio and Indiana.
Yeah. Was it the 5 best players of the top 5 pick, the projected top 5 picks or something like that? Yeah, it's something like that. And then somebody else said that, like, out of their top 10, 4 of them are Ohio State players. 5 of them. I can't remember. I know
Carnell
the one I
Tate.
can't remember is Caden
Also.
McDonald. I know that the person who made that has him high, but I can't remember if he was top 10 or just outside of it. But I mean, you have Tate, Down, Styles, Reese, like Ohio State's putting out some insane talent this year. And with Sonny Styles and Arvell Reese both, they were likely top 10 picks before this. And while I won't say they cemented themselves as such, I would be very shocked at this point if they didn't go top 10, like if not top 5. Like they absolutely killed it. Sonny Styles with a historic combine, like for a linebacker. Great players on the football field as well. Like the tape matches, the combine, and what you're seeing there, and it all adds up. For they supposedly have interviewed well, checked out clean medically. Like they've got everything going for them.
Yeah, I mean Reese could go as high as, I mean, God, if he went 2 overall, or not Reese, Styles, like if probably 5 is what you're looking at right now. It sounds like there's a lot of Giants talk here, but we'll see how it goes. I want to say hello to some more folks coming in here. We got No Formic, Mile High Salute. Good to see you. Appreciate you. We got Wazda Great One on YouTube. Says, keep grinding, fellas. We're grinding. All right. It is Friday, whatever the hell that means. Good to see Peter in here from Singapore. Great to see us, Peter. Shiloh in the house up there in Minnesota. Appreciate you, Shiloh. G Bear comes in here with where my heart is at right now, because I see big, strong defensive linemen and my heart starts to beat fast. Caleb Banks, obviously, I don't think he said his shoe. Did you say, Eric, his shoe was bothering him? But he came in.
He started being bothered by his cleats.
Well, he won with the weigh-ins. Obviously, the big thing for him is going to be the medicals, and we're not privy to that. But I very much on the defensive line subscribe to how many people on the earth of that body type, and he is rare. I mean, you just put him in there, and even if the technique or he's not as very good at getting off blocks, he's athletic enough at his size with his length. He is going to F things up for the opposing team. And it's a rotational position too. So you don't have to be like you're playing 100% of the snaps. Like we get you in there year 1, 35, 40, and like we're going to have impact and ROI compared to what defensive line is. I don't think he's going to fall to 30 unless there is medical issues. And at that point, like, do you want him if enough teams passed him? But I think in this class with his profile, given the position he plays, if he falls out of the top 25, I'll be surprised. But I would love to have him. He is kind of a weird. There's not many 6'6" interior, 0 to 3 techniques that have succeeded in the league. But I think at Denver, you can get him some 3 to 4 eye as well. A little bit more, maybe even 5 lined up over the tackle and reducing down in obvious pass downs. But yeah, he's freakish. We knew he was big. We're not going to grade it twice for that. It just kind of confirms it, maybe a little bump, but it's the medicals for him.
Yeah, and I'm not going to say he won't be there. I'm not even going to say I'd be surprised if he's there just because of the medicals being so unknown. Mm-hmm. If you take out that aspect of it, then it would be a little shocking. But again, the medicals are so big, so important for him. And there is some concern about the age and the technical place that he's at with the time that he's missed with the medicals. So where is he really at as a football player? There's still some concerns over there. The talk has been, pick, I think like 17 or 18 to 24, 25 for him. But we'll see. Stuff hasn't come out about the medicals with him yet. Normally we start to get stuff about the few days after. So we'll see what's there, but it just comes down to the medicals for him. I think that was the most important thing for him at this combine. Wasn't the size. We knew that. We had that from the Senior Bowl. Yeah. And it was just, how did the medicals check out and how did he interview as well? There are some questions with, trying to dig into the technical aspect of it that's lacking with him and grilling him over that in the thing. Is it not necessarily a lack of work ethic? Is it a lack from putting the work in to really, fine tune that technique, or was it a coaching issue? Like what was the issues there as to why he's still a fairly raw player entering the NFL?
Yeah, absolutely. Sorry if you hear the kid crying in the background. But Dylan coming in with some news that Malachi Lemon is not going to be running per Brugler. That's a bummer. Michael also says hello to my dog Summit hanging out here. Queso's also sitting down here by the automatic feeder, hoping and praying Good to see Roy in the house. Appreciate you. Hope you're doing well. We got Big E saying more running backs that can catch the ball out of the backfield, like the backup running back, Jadarian Price out of Notre Dame. They didn't really use Price.
Catch.
Yeah, they didn't use him that way.
They didn't use him as a receiver.
Yeah, I think it's gonna be huge for him in terms of the personal workouts and his pro day, because they're gonna utilize him and try to see if he can be utilized as a wide receiver in routes as well. It's one of those things. I think it was RJ Harvey last season. They talked about it wasn't really utilized that much as a pass catcher, and then in the pro day, they're like, "Oh my gosh, we got something here." So again, it's a massive question mark in his game, and it's because Love is so good as a pass catcher that they didn't use him. Maybe he stinks out loud. I mean, they're going to have more information than we are on that. I mean, I understand wanting the running back stuff. I think I'm maybe hedging a little bit here, Eric, when I say, like, if Denver trades down, mid-second round and they feel desperate for running back and they love him, I would understand the pick. You've obviously done more work and you're not on the same, you're more against it than I am, where I'm like, at least like you got more capital to move around the board to do that. And I do like that he has some explosive elements, but he is very risky. And I'm hoping that you take care of free agency or running back in free agency to the point where you don't feel like you have to be in that situation. It's not where you want to be this year.
Yeah, we'll see what happens with free agency, but with Price, I mean, a guy who, to be fair to him, he didn't get more. He averaged under 10 touches per game, and it wasn't because of him. It was because, you have Jeremiah Love ahead of him. The issue is how those touches went, and the fact that he still had such a high fumble rate on that few touches. I mean, this last year alone, it was like under 1 every 40 touches, which is massive for how little you're actually touching the ball. He brings a lot as a returner, but when you actually dig into what he did as a runner, he was used in a very limited way as a runner. He doesn't offer any pass protection. I think we saw more out of RJ Harvey coming out of college than we did Jadarian Price. We saw more opportunities on tape as a receiver for RJ Harvey than we saw out of Price. And again, part of that is because of Love. And then you look into it, he doesn't really offer much between the runners. Like, he was one of the least effective running backs in efficiency metrics in running between the tackles outside of the left side B gap. That was the only spot where he actually was slightly above average with it. So there are a lot of concerns to his tape. And yeah, you can see there's explosiveness there, and you can see the vision and how he's, patient, but not too patient. But outside of returning ability, he's not giving you what you don't already have in RJ Harvey. And that, to me, is one of the issues with him, particularly for Denver. Yeah. Now, if they go get a big power back in free agency, and they kind of want to duplicate that skill set, and as well as capitalizing on his returner ability, all right, like we'll see what happens there. But there's still value with that, especially with Mims being on the last year of his rookie contract. We'll see what happens there. There's been a lot of talk that they want to get that extension done, and that's really the only extension of those guys that they want to get done. So we'll see. But right now he has a round 4 grade for me. That can change after the combine. We'll see with the testing and everything, if he does it, how things turn out there. So that's for me is what makes it hard to swallow when we start talking about top 50, top 64. Is just where he sits for me. Now, if Denver loves him, all right, I'll appeal to authority there with them, but it's just a little early for me right now for a guy who hasn't been a running back one, may not ever be able to be a running back, and has so many concerns about his game that you're not going to be able to get answers to, even through the combine or pro days or anything like that, because it's still different than in-game environment, and he just wasn't able to see it consistently on the field, which, again, not his fault. And it sucks to hit him for that, but it is how it is.
Yeah. No, Farmek is coming in. He says he's a Bills fan out here in Colorado. Says it was a catch with Brandon Cooks. Let's say it was a catch, whatever, and you maybe could have won, but don't let it come down to that, and don't turn the ball over 4 other times on top of that. The Bills lost that. I come back to it. I'm a big Cardinal fan and a Cubs hater, and people always get mad at Steve Bartman, but they forget that the shortstop, Alex S. Gonzalez, buffaloed a weak dribbler to him that would have been an inning-ending double play. Make the play. it's in front of you. Like I feel like blaming the refs or that call. Don't turn the ball over 4 times, 5 if you include the interception. It's control what you can. Don't leave it to that 50-50 kind of play coming down and ending your season. So I mean, especially because it was so much in control. Josh Allen had a bad game. He had a bozo game from them. So just there's more internal blame than external.
Yeah, in your example, I'm just gonna say they should go play a real sport because baseball ain't one. But no, it wasn't a catch. The rules are very clear here. You have to sustain it to the ground. He didn't sustain it to the ground. You have to sustain it through the thing. It's not just a matter of getting the knee down and being touched in that instance because he was falling to the ground as he was making the catch. Now, had he taken a step or two or taken multiple steps before that and established himself as a runner and then went to the ground, then he would have been down by contact. The rules are very clear here. And like everybody who's been in the NFL outside of people who are with the Bills organization have come out and said, no, the interception was the right call because the rules are very clear here. It is what it is. But as Nick said, shouldn't let it come down to that situation. It's similar with all the Colts and the leverage on the field goal. Shouldn't have allowed it to come down to that situation in the first place.
Yeah.
It's just how it is. Don't let refs be the game deciding factor of it.
Yep. There's so many other things and that you have more control over that you could have done better. Execute. Peter Middleton, could the Broncos get the best or second best tight end or running back at 30? I don't think you're going to be able to get the best tight end or running back. You will have the option for the second best, but that doesn't mean much. That changes by year. Second best tight end last season would have been incredible. Second best running back in the there's a draft. Was it the McCaffrey draft? He was the second back taken, I think, because he had Leonard Fournette go before him. That would be great. But this class, I don't know if that's personally worth it. I think if you want to go one of those devalued positions, I mean, you're hell-bent on doing that, like with your first pick, the move is to trade down 10 to 20 slots and then give yourself flexibility, give yourself ammo to add vets in the trade market. I think there's the biggest deficiency to add talent there in the entire NFL right now. It's how the John Franklin Meyer, would you give up? A 5th and a 6th for JFM and a 7th, something silly like that. And what we got from him, I mean, that's, if you have the cap space in the capital, as in picks, that's where you can really make a big difference on the team for not a lot of cost. So I'm not necessarily for it. I think I would trade up for Love, but it needs to be like 5 picks. So like pie in the sky, right? Like, I'd be a millionaire if somebody just gave me the money. Okay. Yeah, for sure, Nick. Bronco for life. Forget about the tight end, running back, linebacker talk. What do you think about QB2? Stayed in it. Do you think we need a more experienced QB2? We can't go through this again in January. It was fluky. I feel bad for Stidham because like that second half, nobody was could throw the football. I mean, and he's not the athlete that Bo Nix is, so you couldn't kind of cut through the bad weather. And also he hadn't played meaningful snaps in 4 months. So it's pretty hard. Like I wouldn't necessarily use that game as a indictment on Stidham other than he is a backup quality quarterback. But should Denver be looking at quarterback in the draft? Sure. It's one of those things where if it's like, round 5, you see a guy that you really like that has potentially even spot starter tools, you can get pretty good ROI on that guy, but it has to make sense for the room and where you're at. And I think Bo Nix is probably far enough on the development path now that like, I'm not necessarily worried about taking away from Bo Nix to bring in another talented option. So if there's somebody you like with, again, starter tools, Taylor Green, for example, big athlete, big arm. I mean, maybe you can do what the Patriots did with Joe Milton. They'd use a 7th rounder on him. They get a 4th and 5th. I mean, boom, ROI immediately. So you're looking, but I think quarterback 2 is Stidham, but you should always be looking to draft quarterback because if you do hit on one, it's great. And especially that there's a caveat to that, Eric. Like you can't be like digging in the, 4th, 5th round. I don't want to call it the garbage bin, but you don't want to be digging around there if you like desperately need a starter. But as far as draft and develop when you have a guy, I'm not against it. I don't think it's a wasted pick because even the backups are making $8-9 million a year.
And it's such a position that teams are so desperate that, as you said, what the Patriots did with Milton, of that 7th and going and trading him for that. Always draft a quarterback and try to do that. Give them 2 years of working with them, and then you can look at trading the guy away. Maybe it's after year 3. But always draft a quarterback to add to the room because, again, teams are desperate for it, and they are desperate for guys coached by Sean Payton. I mean, we saw that last offseason with Zach Wilson and Miami pushing really hard to go get him because of his time working with Sean Payton. Teams love what Sean Payton's mind and what he's able to, how he's able to teach. There's a lot of value with that. We're seeing it with coaches. We've seen it with Zach Wilson last year. Always draft a quarterback. Always keep it up. Do I think that you're getting a guy this year to replace Stidham as quarterback too? No. But next year, maybe you can develop that guy to where he's at that point. I think Stidham's going to be the backup quarterback again this year. Just let him play out that contract, that extension that he signed last year, and go from there. But you can still draft a new quarterback 3, quarterback 4, because Sam Ehlinger is also a free agent. So got to look at replacing him too. You can carry 4 quarterbacks, 3 on the roster, 1 on the practice squad, or even 3 with 1 on the practice squad, whatever. But you can go do that. Always draft a quarterback. Doesn't have to be early. If it's day 3, it's day 3, but always draft a quarterback.
Yeah, thank you so much. We got Max coming in here saying, I see a lot of mocks out of the Broncos taking a safety, and I'm wondering why. I'd like a wide receiver linebacker. What are your thoughts? At the end of the day, for pick 30, especially with where the Broncos are at, I'm going to assume that they take care of running back, linebacker, tight end to the point where you're confident and capable day one at those positions. And then at that point at 30, just take talent that falls. And I think that's a case of what's going on here. Why safety at 30? I don't think it's why safety. It's why Emmanuel McNeil Warren specifically. And he might be my draft crush, Eric. I know I'm normally a defensive line guy, but like that dude is massive. He is super long. He's versatile, and he tackles like a freaking psychopath. I'm also pretty surprised somebody of his obvious athletic gifts stayed at Toledo. So I'm not sure what was going on last, spring. Maybe you have some insight there. I know Denver hasn't really brought in or drafted people who have transferred up and out that often. You had obviously Harvey went from quarterback, running back, Virginia Tech, but he was recruited as a quarterback. So I think it's a little different, but yeah, I think it's more like why safety? Well, safety, Hufanga has a long list of injury history. PJ Locke's gone. Brandon Jones coming off an injury, expensive last year of his deal. But I think it's more so like we got to figure somewhere to put Emmanuel McNeil Warren in these drafts. And this dude is a banshee. He's physical, versatile, and really, really good. And is safety typically your best ROI position round 1? No. But I think he's worth pick 30. I'll be surprised if he falls to 30, but if he does, you have to consider it.
Yeah, I can't remember who it was. I remember seeing a profile on him. I want to say it was Bucky Brooks, who was one of the guys who has mocked him to Denver, and he touched on why he chose to stay at Toledo, and it wasn't because there weren't teams interested. I guess he was one of the most sought after prospects in last year or the year before. I can't remember exactly when it was. And teams really coveted him to bring him in, and he chose Toledo, and he chose to stick it there, and he loves it, and he loved it there, and he wanted to stay true to them for giving him a chance. And it's just all those things that you just don't see nowadays. It's similar to Owen Heineke, the linebacker from Oklahoma. He had NIL deals, but he didn't play for a single cent last year. Like, he had NIL offers and offers from other teams to go play there, and he just chose not to. I don't know if that is the same exact thing as McNeil Warren, but he had opportunities elsewhere, and he just chose to stay. And that's something that teams actually gravitate to, even though they accept that transferring is a part of the game now. They still like to see players stick with where they're at. But he is a great player, a very versatile player, and can really come in and fit with this secondary really well with what they're going to be asked to do. He pairs really well with Talanoa Hufanga, and there's a really good chance he can end up being a upgrade over Brandon Jones. And I guess there's still some concerns about Brandon Jones with his injury recovery and not being where he should be at this point in his recovery. I was talking with somebody about it and saying, had Denver made it to the AFC Championship game, there's a lot of talk that maybe the Super Bowl, he could have come back. Sean Payton kind of threw some water on that. And the guy I was talking with said there was no way he was coming back this year. Like, he's just behind. He's been behind from the start. So that's also playing a factor into this, a major factor into this. And with his contract, if Denver drafts a safety, even if they still have Brandon Jones, when they get down to roster cutdowns, and if it's McNeil Warren or somebody else, and they're clearly better, they can still part with Brandon Jones and still free up that cap space.
And there was a exclusive one-on-one interview with James Palmer and George Payton, and he talked about, like, obviously the draft is the lifeblood of keeping a roster strong, and draft, develop, retain. Talked about all the, like, getting ahead on the extensions and everything, but he talked about bringing in players who are cheaper, younger, and then he kind of chuckled and said, and healthier, when bringing in those guys from college as well, because they've just not had the wear and tear. It is brutal. The NFL is freaking brutal, man. So yeah, that's again, safety is a devalued position, but at pick 30, if I talk about it a lot, I've tweeted about it a lot. Like, what the hell does Nick mean by the horizontal board? You have guys on tiers, right? Like they're it's not exactly linear 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You have like 5 guys tier 1, 6 tier 2, and then let's say you're sitting there at pick 30 and Emmanuel McNeil Warren is a tier 4 player for you, and you don't even have another player except for tier 6. Am I going to force a pick on tier 6 when I have a guy that's quite obviously graded higher? I think it's a bad process. Unless maybe I'm like, okay, can't take a safety. I love him. Is there a trade on the table? But like, I think you got to trust the process and lean that way. I mean, you've had even Sean Payton, everybody's like, oh, Sean Payton always, chips to the middle, go right now. He talked about draft picks being like the 3-year picture with them as well. And that's like, safety is going to be a need in 3 years. Guess what else is going to be a need in 3 years? Defensive playmakers, if you can find them. That's what you're looking for. Like, and also round 1, I'm not looking to fill a position. I'm looking for a 10-year tentpole franchise building block player. Like, do I have that? And it's hard at 30. It's hard. I understand that. Like, 30 is a little bit of a different conversation. It's first round. 30 is different. That's more of you're not going to get a first round graded player most likely. But if you do, maybe he is for you. I think you go that way. I don't think you forsake it because you need tight end more or wide receiver more. You got to trust big picture, add talent. If you're forsaking talent and going against your own evaluation, it's going to lead to problems, I think. So trust the process.
Yeah, and I mean the 3-year aspect to it, that's a key thing for building it, or for building a roster. And as you said, it's a need in 3 years, and it's definitely a need now. I think we touched on this in January, maybe it might have been earlier this month, but about safety being a sneakier need than people think. I mean, you're potentially losing PJ Locke to free agency, Brandon Jones with his injury, the Talanoa Hufanga injury, basically everything that you just said. And you don't really have guys. I mean, you have Devin Key, who may end up being something. He did play well when, in that little bit of time where Locke and Jones are both out. But I mean, if you can upgrade there with a guy who can just be so versatile and do basically anything that's asked and has a good nose for the ball, McNeil Warren is a very intriguing prospect, and he's definitely that guy that's being mocked there in that first round. And I won't be surprised if after today, if he does the testing, that he's getting talked about a lot more, and we start talking about him possibly top 25, top 20.
I mean, I've heard people say top 12 with him, with the athleticism and the length and the ball skills and the tackling. So we'll see. Dylan Theineman, I can't ever pronounce the last name, Oregon. He's also interesting. He's not Emmanuel McNeil Warren to me, but he's a useful chess piece as well. He's complementary. Like, right, he's a little bit ornamental, I think, where I think McNeil Warren is a little bit more solidifying, if that makes sense at all. But he's somebody also that's in the round 1 conversation right now for Denver. Why not wide receiver, linebacker? Those are also in the conversation. CJ Allen, Galladay. I'm not here for the Malcolm Rodriguez, even though he had a good testing day yesterday. I'm going at 30, I think, is a little preposterous. I'm also not here on Anthony Hill at pick 30. I know he's a good athlete who run fast, but I think he's a little bit – he doesn't revel in physicality like I kind of want from my linebacker. So, like, mid-round 2, for sure. With the sideline to sideline, the athleticism, and that'd be great to have for Denver. I'd rather have somebody who freaking eats glass, which I don't always feel like somebody would appreciate that when he plays. I loved his combine conversation. Like, what's one of your best aspects? Being physical and downhill and taking on blockers in the run game. It's like, me when I lie. But that's a whole different conversation. He's a he's a fine prospect. But wide receiver, linebacker, defensive line, offensive tackle. I mean, it's easier to say what positions the Broncos won't go at 30 for me right now, and that'd probably be center and quarterback. Other than that, I mean, running back doesn't make sense because of the class in itself.
Yeah.
But I mean, if you took a guard or a tackle, yeah, I mean, there's a lot of smoke coming from that. It seems like Denver's like, oh, I think it might be time to make that investment. Edge rusher is also harder, but like, see Ellis, see Cooper. If I see a guy who can reset the contract that can be a plus player there at the second most valuable position, am I going to let Cooper or Ellis on this roster keep me from adding somebody who I think can be a star? Not me. And it's easy for me to say I don't have a personal relationship with those guys, but like, not me. So I don't know. I mean, everything's on the table, Eric. We spent 2 weeks ago spending 15 minutes talking about cornerback. People lose their mind, but like, if the guy's the most talented there on the table, you trade from the surplus after the fact because somebody's going to want J-Mac Moss, and you have a chance to reset with a higher ceiling and lower cost profile.
Yeah, and I mean, I think linebacker is the position that's most mocked to Denver anyways.
Yep.
It's a lot of, there's been Jake Goldday, there's been Anthony Hill, there's been CJ Allen, a lot of CJ Allen smoke. It's been one of those. And then defensive line, I think, has probably been second. Not a lot of wide receivers being mocked to Denver there at 30. And I think that's going to continue after kind of what Sean Payton said during his presser this week about the lack of opportunity is part of what's holding Mims back because of how deep they are. I think that's going to scare some people off, even though they do want to add to the room. I just think that they do it in free agency, and that kind of seems to be the general feel is that they're going to add somebody either through trade or a signing to just kind of round out that room at wide receiver. But yeah, I mean, they can go anywhere. And I think, honestly, I'm with you, the only two positions because of what the Broncos have that you can say they won't is center and is quarterback. I think those are only two. Then you can get into some positional value stuff and where the classes, that's running back, that's tight end, may not have guys there that are kind of valued at that spot, but man, there's a justifiable reason for every single position for the Broncos to go except for quarterback. I mean, you can even make the case for center, but a little bit harder to do so
because you can't move him off
anywhere. Yeah,
like it's hard to move him off. Yeah, I mean, really, we're at a point, and it's champagne problems, but like the talent that's presented to you should dictate direction more than where you are at as a roster right now. And again, I'll point again, Sean Payton saying the 3-year picture.
Yep.
Almost everything on the freaking roster is going to be a need in the 3-year lens of things. Mm-hmm. So the talent should dictate direction 95% of the time. Did want to get into it. I saw we had the comment from Michael. What position would you say is an absolute must for the Broncos to draft? I think again, we've kind of hinted at it too, but like I've been really strengthening this opinion coming out of Indy. Drew Sanders is gone. He is not part of the picture. He's just here because he's under contract and he's a 90 guy. It would take a miracle of, Moses parting the sea, I think, at this point for Drew Sanders to be here. I don't think they are infatuated with I don't know. Not that he's a bad person. I just don't know. I don't think he's picking it up. And I think they are ready to move on from Drew Sanders. And they have Reed, they have Bailey. I don't think they're in love with either of them as guy off the bench, if you will. So I think given the talent of the class, where you can find these players, linebacker is for me actually the must for the Broncos in this class, but it's because you have rounds 1 through 5 where it's an option and it's deep and you're going to be able to find talent. So like it's a must, but it's like a wide net of when it could happen.
Yeah. Drew Sanders, if he didn't get hurt, he would have been cut at roster cutdowns prior to this last season. Denver's been ready to move on because of him just not getting it. And so it's been a lot of issues there, and they felt that they had replacements in place. He got hurt, so they just with the contract and maybe you keep him around, he'll probably make it this year. And again, roster cut down, that's going to be the time to look at. And but linebacker, it's one of those guys. I mean, not only do you have Shenaud and Singleton, you're probably going to replace one of the two in free agency, but with the way the market is, you're not going to be highly unlikely you're going to be able to replace both of them. So you got to find that third guy. You got to upgrade the depth because Lavelle Bailey, they made it very clear they don't trust him outside of very certain situations and a very certain style. And Karine Reed, he's a special teams guy that has some upside that they're still kind of work on developing. And so there's plenty of guys. Obviously, a dream would be Arvell Reese. He's not going to be there at 30. He's a guy probably more of an edge, but you can drop him back and do some of that blitzing from the inside and move him around the formation. Sunday Styles is a dream going top 10. He's not gonna be there at 30. If he is, then he either, a video with him and a gas mask came out or something, like something came out for him to fall that far. I mean, if we're talking about those guys there that early, I mean, there's plenty of other linebackers that are there. Gold Day's one of them. Maybe, Jacob Rodriguez, they're maybe the third or fourth round at this point. Tested really well. Did move up a little bit. I'm not into the second round talk that we're getting at from a lot of Denver beat guys. That's very concerning for me. But he tested out really well. Size is still a concern with him, but he showed the athletic traits that you need to kind of minimize that as a issue. Gold Day had a little bit more issues on the field. Tall player who plays upright, and it really affected his change of direction. But there's plenty of ways they can go. That is one position that would go. And to answer the Boogmeister coming in with a $5 super chat. Thank you, Boogmeister. Saying good morning, big dogs. Finally Friday. Do you think Styles will be there at 30? No.
Yeah, no. Keep it short. No, he's gonna go top 10 for sure in this class.
Probably top 5.
Yeah, probably, but I just a little safer there. I would right now I'd pencil him into the Giants, but we'll see what happens. He would be awesome. I mean, freak. There's a lot of linebackers, though. You touched on a few of them. Galladay, obviously, the change of direction stuff wasn't great, but, I remember some of that conversation was also with Jack Campbell coming out because he was 6'5", and, when you're that big, it's a problem, but, I think because you are so strong and, I feel like he was able to, mentally cover up some of it at Cincinnati because they had him playing overhang a lot, way more than somebody that size should. So, again, if he fell to pick – I think he's going to probably be a mid-second, but if he fell to the second round, I'm in. You mentioned CJ Allen. I mean, I don't know if his agent is doing the work there, but everybody's tripping over themselves from the intangibles and who he is and how intelligent he is. And we say it's a neck up position, and then he's a glass eater too. So again, linebacker, not the best ROI. You probably have to be a 10-year starter to validate the first round pick there. And it's a hard bar to clear. But he's up there. We talked about him a few weeks ago, but Keyshawn Elliott, interesting. And I don't know if you saw Kyle Lewis's tweet yesterday, but this was I had to put my phone down and go take a walk. I'm oh my God. But Kyle Lewis Riddick, did you see who he compared Kyle Lewis to?
Mm-mm.
Derek Brooks.
Okay.
I don't know if you froze, but that's okay. There you are. Yeah,
I was
Derek
processing.
Brooks. Yeah, one of the best linebackers in the history of the NFL. You can find it on Lewis Riddick's Twitter, but we haven't talked about him once. I know he's 220, but he covers as well as any linebacker prospect. The one I'm trying to think of, since I remember somebody who covered as well was Jeremiah Wusu-Koramoah, because he kind of obviously smaller as well, but I was oh man, that looks like a nickel out there matching up with those guys as safety. So he's out there, and also Trotter at Missouri. So linebacker is very much one of those positions, and Styles as well is interesting. Doesn't have to be round 1. It can be anywhere in the top 4 or 5 rounds. And it's you probably got somebody who can play some snaps this year and is penciled in to be a starter in 2027.
Yeah. And on that with this linebacker class, I mean, of those that ran the 40, one of the numbers that you're looking for, it's not necessarily the 40, it's a 10-yard split, and 162 is kind of that point. And only 2 linebackers out of the group that ran didn't go a sub 162. One guy hit on the head and one guy was at a 164. Absolute ridiculous class. A lot of guys stood out. And then you mentioned, Jack Campbell and Jake Goldie. I would say that their difference in play style is a little bit of a difference there with that whole pad level and not playing with good bend and the change of direction. Jack Campbell was a little bit more of a downhill guy, and Gold Day is a little bit more of a cover guy. And so it's a little bit more problematic for a guy who's going to be in coverage, where change of direction is pretty impactful for him. But still, I mean, with how much he was trusted out in the slot as that overhang and running smaller slot receivers and faster slot receivers down the seam, teams are still going to love it. If he doesn't go top 40, I would be a little bit surprised with that. So it's a really good linebacker class. I know you're not as high on Anthony Hill, but he had a really good day. One guy who actually,
I think he's mid-second rounder. If they took him at 30, I wouldn't be ecstatic. Just because I worry if he does the linebacker like the must-haves for linebacker. That well, like he does the stuff like, oh, this is good if it's built upon this base. It scares me a little bit. Who was the guy from? There was another Texas linebacker who was like a freaking athlete. Can't deconstruct blocks. Can't play between the tackles. He runs beautifully sideline to sideline. Went to Cincinnati. One of the best athletes that season. Malik Jefferson. Does that name sound familiar? There's a Texas.
I know there's a Malik Jefferson, but I can't remember if that's who you're talking about or not.
Okay. Again, day 2, sure.
Yeah. But this year there's another Texas linebacker as well, and Trey Moore, who is more of that edge off-ball linebacker type. And one of the things that he does really well is work downhill. He's very physical and offers that blitzing. So he's another guy. He actually worked out with the edge group, but he is a guy that's being talked about possibly being an off-ball more so at the NFL level, being that downhill guy. He stands out. And then TCU, the Caleb Alarms, or he also had a really good day yesterday. That's not getting talked about enough. He kind of got overshadowed by Sonny Styles and Arvell Reese. I mean, Alarms or still ran a 4.47 40-yard dash, hit a 1.59 10-yard split, jumped really well, and just got outshined by Styles and Reese, so he's not getting talked about much.
The name was Joseph Osai.
Okay.
If you're absolute freak athlete, didn't want to play physical. He'll fine. Oh man, we're running out of time, Eric. Defensive line. Who stood out for you? I know the Oklahoma cat really is somebody who impressed. Keldrick Falk, like measurements, body beautiful, youngest player, I think, in the entire class. I think 3-4 defensive end. If he fell to 30, I'm in, just to see what you can develop there with the body type and the profile. I know Zane Durant, Penn State, both of the Penn State guys, Penn State's strength and development programs, I mean, one of the top 5 in the NFL. They're incredible at that. Zane Durant and the guy, Dennis Allen, the last name, I can't remember. Dennis hyphenated. Hyphenated last name, Dennis Allen, defensive coordinator. I don't remember the you said it just now, but you kind of broke up a little bit. And then, I mentioned the Oklahoma guy, Proctor, from Southeast Louisiana, had some good stuff. And also there was the other Clemson defensive lineman who's like just pure, like raw talent, day 3 kind of guy, but 6'5" with length and ran pretty well. I mean, you're looking to bring in somebody who can maybe fill the Owazarike role as somebody who doesn't get a jersey, but can fill in a year down the line, draft and develop. He was one who stood out. His name's he was not on my radar at all, Eric, but he had a good day. And also, I just got to give a shout out, Malachi Lawrence from Central Florida, 6'4", 250, 40-inch vertical, 10-foot, 10-inch broad jump, 4.52, 40-yard dash, 1.59, 10-yard split. Hello, Malachi Lawrence. Pretty darn incredible. On the defensive tackle from Clemson was DeMont Capehart. That's the name. So anybody else stood out or negatively? I mean, everybody, Caleb Banks, we're big fans of Darrell Jackson Jr., Florida State. Where are you at on that?
Yeah, I'm a huge fan of Darrell Jackson Jr. You mentioned Keldrick Falk and LT, and not LT Overton, but I won't go throw him into that same talk. They both made it very clear they need to add about 10, 15 pounds and play that 3-4 edge, that defensive line, defensive end. They are not fluid enough to be a traditional stand-up edge, like, the Nick Bonito, Jonathan Cooper, that type of edge.
No.
They are not that kind of guy. As for interior defensive line, I'm glad you mentioned Caleb Proctor. I think he probably had the best day overall for interior defensive linemen out of Southeastern Louisiana. Measured out really well, tested really well, and absolutely killed it with the drills. DeMonte Capehart, he's a guy who left you wanting with the drill work. Really struggled there. Grayson Halton out of Oklahoma. Measurements weren't great, but he tested out really well, and he's just such a smooth athlete, and that stood out. Tyler Onyedem, I think is how you say the last name, out of Texas A&M. If you want to talk about the drill work, like he had a pretty good day with what he did. Not great with the athletic testing, but it was solid. But when you're talking about the drill work and looking at a guy this is a guy like, all right, you're going to show everybody how it's done. He was that guy. Like, it was every single drill was basically textbook, exactly what you're asking for. Stood out consistently. Absolutely loved what he did. And yeah, a lot of guys who, I mean, Rayshon Benny, he didn't test, but he did pretty well in the drills. A lot of guys didn't do anything, unfortunately, which kind of hurt as well. Jackie Marshall is another one out of Baylor who he tested really well. Um, but you mentioned Zane Durant. He stole the show with the athletic testing. Caleb Proctor was just behind him and everything, pretty much just to hype up Caleb Proctor a little bit more. Caleb Banks, again, he had that shoe issue, so we didn't get to see him go through all the drills. So yeah, I mean, those are guys that really stood out with it. But Caleb Proctor and Tyler Onyedem are probably the two that I'm coming out of this combine looking like, yeah, you're probably going to be moving up the most out of this group.
Yeah, not enough time for a mock draft today because we got to get out. There's one more name, Eric, that I had highlighted. We talk a lot, but there are some other people out there that I respect, and there's like specific positional fields, if you will. And I reached out, like, was there any under the radar guys who, I mean, again, I'm not 200 deep. Just life's busier, so I'm much better, top 80 to 120. But the TCU linebacker, he said, I mean, with that size and movement skills, you have to at least keep him on your radar. Caleb Alarms-Orr from TCU. He's one that I haven't, not on my radar at all. There's a TCU wide receiver as well, McAllister. Keep a name on. We'll see how that goes. But he stood out. And what was the size? I mean, 6'2", 234. For today's NFL prototype. And then to run a 4.47 40. Hello, how are you doing? Round 4? Yes, this is me. I'm calling. I want you on my team. Potentially round 5. I don't know. I haven't gone to the tape or anything, but just those baseline athleticism and size. It's like you have the traits.
Yeah, I mean, he's the guy that I talked about when we were talking about linebackers a little bit as one of those guys that stood out. A little bit of concern over the length. I mean, this is a linebacker class that lacks length. Overall, there's almost all of them are under that, pretty much that 32-inch mark that you're kind of looking for. So it's tough, but he showed the athletic traits similarly to Jacob Rodriguez. I would say that Jacob Rodriguez is slightly ahead of Caleb Alarms-Orr, but they showed those traits that you look for to help make up for the length of it. Alarms-Orr is a little bit more of a cover guy. And looking at trends that that the Broncos have kind of set, and not just the Broncos over the last 10 years, but George Payton, even before he was with Denver, and Sean Payton, even when he was with New Orleans, he really fits the mold of the what they've looked for in linebackers combined over it. So he could definitely be a name to watch when we're probably getting early day 3, maybe late round 3, depending on how a lot of things shake out between now and then.
Absolutely. Well, it should be a fun one today with the tight ends. And yeah, man, I'm really excited for free agency in the draft. We're going to be there before you know it. Right now, I think just because I am, in the words of Popeye, I am who I am. But Caleb Banks is probably right now my guy that I'm just give me him because he is so freakish. I know he's risky, but I just want freaks. I'm a collector on the defensive line. I want the biggest baddies you ever met on the defense. I just did that because of your face, Eric. I just want freaks along the defensive line. Give me 10 deep. But we'll see how it goes. A lot of fun today. Appreciate you, Eric, for the hard work that you do covering the draft. I know that I'm going to be leaning on you this cycle. Obviously, I'm going to have some opinions, and I have philosophy for team building as far as where skill sets are valued. But for the actual nitty gritty of each player, I will bow to you this cycle. I have my opinions, but you can stomp them down quickly, which is fine. But it should be fun, and yeah, I'm excited to learn more and more about this class from the combine. But at the end of the day, combine's fun. It's the tape is the Northern Star for these guys, as well as the character. But we don't always have that information. Although I will say, what's the quote from Twitter? For James Pierce Jr. last season, oh, this guy's got really bad character issues. Shout out to the haters. You were right. So sometimes Jalen Carter, you remember everybody was ready to call Todd McShay some really nasty words because he said there's some concerns with Jalen Carter, and then maybe there were for them. So again, there is obviously some character assassination that is wrong. So you got to take everything with a grain of salt, but it's out there and it does matter. for these guys as well. So any final words, Eric, before we get out?
Yeah, I have some football related before I do. My look was because when you're talking about Caleb Banks, the thought came to my head of that this year you're just gonna be like that one song. I like them big. I like them chunky.
I
Um,
mean, give me aliens on the defensive line, man. I just need some aliens. I will say though, listening to people who are pretty close to the Broncos, a lot of them are really picking on that offensive tackle conversation. So I think maybe we need to do a deep dive on OT, what's available here. Maybe rule out Monroe Freeling because all of a sudden it's like top 12 with a bullet for him. I don't know if you're picking up on that too. But offensive tackle feels like it's going to be up there.
Yeah. And one thing going back to about the combine, just got to remember that it's just about checking boxes. Doesn't necessarily make a person's player's prospects, but it can definitely ruin it. Bad medicals can get you to fall out. There's that running back like 10 years ago who nobody knew about, but he had a really bad knee issue and ended up going undrafted and only made it a couple years. Came out of Clemson, I think it was. Ended up going to Philadelphia, I think, as an undrafted free agent. But it's about this. And one thing, too, is that the process has kind of changed. And this was something that I picked up on yesterday. Daniel Jeremiah was talking with Mike McDonald, the Seahawks coach. He's like, with how the season is, with that extra game, even teams that aren't making the playoffs, their coaching staff, the combine is their first exposure to these players. They obviously get a little bit of a profile from, the scouting department, but the general manager, the coaches, they're either going through playoffs, they're going through season wrap-up stuff, they're going through that, and then the focus shifts to, replacing coaches, what they need to do there. Free agency is what we're doing a lot of work. So this is the first exposure. So the process has kind of become, this is your first exposure, and now the coaches will go to the tape to check off boxes and make sure everything checks and matches here. So that's something to keep in mind too as we start going forward, not just this year, but next year. A lot of stuff at the combine may end up being a little bit more misleading because this is coaches' first exposure to it, and it may not check with what they see on tape. And it comes to mind with a prospect last year that a bunch of people were just hyping up for Denver pretty early on. And then by the time we got into like April, it was like, yeah, Denver's not as high on him. And that was because coaches got that tape exposure to him and they didn't come out as high on him as the scouting department was, which caused that shift in the other direction.
I got to ask you. So I was listening to some Broncos coverage yesterday because when I can get some of it, I'll listen in, the actual interviews, or if there's any tidbits. I want you to name them, or if maybe this is the first you're hearing it too, but somebody mentioned that last year there was a tight end who ended up going pretty high in the draft that a lot of people like for Broncos country, but then they met him and he was off the board after that. And he was somebody who had success this season. So I think it's got to be Harold Vanna Jr. I mean, read between the lines how many tight ends actually had success last season that they actually had a chance at. I would imagine it was Harold Vanna Jr.
I can't remember if I touched on this during the live show or after or one of the other shows, or even if it was just privately. But Harold Vanna Jr. was a little off-putting to the coaching staff from what I gathered after his visit. And he just kind of seemed, for lack of a better way to put it, he just kind of seemed a little fake with his self-presentation, I think would be the best way I can put that.
Well, there was talk that he had to have a handler at Bowling Green because he had a hard time just getting places where he needed to be and out of places he shouldn't be all the time. So it's different when you have money too. So I think I think it had to be based on the parameters, somebody that they had a chance on that they didn't take that had success. There's only 3 tight ends last year that I thought had, 4, I guess, but Jackson Hawes. I don't think it was Jackson Hawes. No. I think it was.
There was another that they really liked going into the combine, and then the medicals came out, but he didn't do a whole lot. And that should be a pretty obvious guy who was the one tight end that had a lot of Bronco fans wanting him and had some serious medical questions. Kind of punch in the right direction there.
All right. Well, we're gonna get out of here. Eric Trickle, of course, at Eric Trickle. I'm at Nick Kendall MHH. Also at Mile High Huddle. Dylan Von Arks in the background as well. Follow him on Twitter. We're at Facebook. Check us out there. YouTube, Instagram, all that good stuff. Like, subscribe, share over on YouTube as well. We appreciate everyone coming in here and hanging out as they're. Oh, it's the ticker. I'm like, why is it not coming up? We're good. Got to get out of here. It's Friday. It's been a busy week. Appreciate it, everyone. If you got anything for us, hit us up on Twitter. Have a great rest of your day. Appreciate everyone in the comments. As always, go Broncos.